Hey, so this is our episode of Astrology Unplugged for Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and we will be discussing the movement of Saturn to transit into the sign of Aries. We were just having a little chat amongst ourselves. I welcome everyone in the YouTube community, Facebook, anywhere online that was a friend and fan of Rick's work. Please come join us. We're thinking we might try to use his Facebook page to go ahead and post messages. And you can also friend either myself, Rick Cempie, or Claudia Del Cid at our Facebook pages. We will most likely notice that you happen to have Rick DiClemente as a friend in common, and that'll make you a safe person for us to accept. And we look forward to doing that. So let us get started with today and talk about Saturn in Aries, which it will be entering in May of this year. So I would like to go ahead and grab a hold of the image and share it with y'all as to which one I'm using. That way you have an idea. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that image and I'm going to pop it into the chat so that each of you can go ahead and open it up and have it for your own use. I thought, since I'm spearheading tonight, I'm going to go ahead and utilize some asteroids so that everybody gets a mini tutorial, and we're going to be looking at that more effectively. I will share my screen and we'll see how that goes. There's the screen I want to use. Let me hit share screen. Okay, we're going to look at this more effectively momentarily, but first I'm going to show you how I make it a little simpler to get a start without the asteroids. So I'm going to go back, and just so that I have this list handy, I'm going to copy it. And then show the chart. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I was supposed to delete those out. So I'll show you how that is so easy with the hit of that little X. Over at the right-hand side of this yellow box, just hit the X. And I can even get, well, these little things here, these other asteroids, they're not so much a problem. You guys are used to those. And momentarily, I want to get to the chat.
I love that you can do that on astro.com.
Oh my
With the
gosh, yeah.
asteroids, they've had it for years ahead of anybody else, I think.
Right. That's the list of asteroids that I've used. If you want to go ahead and save the notes at the end, you can do that. And you can copy anything you want in the meantime. I'm going to minimize that for now. And I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink it down a little bit. So we're just looking at the planets. That looks like it's able to get centered into this screen more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely right.
That's not so bad. Okay. I'd like you all to take a look at it and take a couple minutes, 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes, find what you find notable that you want to consider, because I think it would be interesting to do a little round robin and see what we're noting. There are so many things. For those of you who don't use the minor aspects so much, this quintile is the fifth harmonic of 72 degrees. The longer one is a biquintile of 144 degrees. This is a talent that you have developed over lifetimes. This is a talent you've had much longer, and you have the capacity, you could be teaching people with the talent how to use it. It's really deeply ingrained into your soul. So that is interesting to see, this connection with Pluto and Jupiter, and then Mars and the Sun. I'm very thrilled with Saturn going into Aries to see that Sun Mars connection. That gives me a hope that there may be some spiritual guardianship over the delivery of the energies of Mars. We can hope. I do feel that that is very particularly more likely with those people who actually have the humility to work on themselves. Because my thought is, there is no good or bad chart. Are just charts that people can work with if they choose, or they won't work with them. And if they don't work with them, difficult things are going to hit harder for them. So you can have people like those born with Mercury retrograde. Many of us have an easier time coping with Mercury retrograde because we were born with it. So over time, you learn, if I'm feeling this way, I know to go ahead and do a few things differently. And you don't get yourself stumbling into the areas that Mercury retrograde trips people up with. Has anybody else found that yet? Yeah.
I think that's true of many retrogrades.
Oh, yeah.
Rick.
Your familiarity and your willingness to work with it, the way that energy is wanting to play, completely is going to have an effect on it. I just did a reading recently, and I explained to someone that I love the Placidus system because the disparity of sizes of houses, I learned long ago, actually means something. It has more to do with what you chose to learn in this life, that there's a lot more emphasis on that axis. Particularly, it's even more important and maybe a little more demanding if there is an entire sign that is eaten up by that extra large axis. So we refer to the intercepted Aries and Libra axis of 12th and 6th. So that is good to keep your eyes on, especially since Aries is the sign that Saturn went into. So I'm going to stop looking at the chart at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and look at you all. And I'd like you to go ahead and give me your thoughts. I can even stop the share at this point, right? You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So who wants to share some thoughts about what you noticed? Anybody?
Well, I
I
noticed
do.
that Saturn is at the very tail end there, or is it leading?
Oh, yeah, it would be kind of leading. It's just
Oh,
slipping in to it's just slipping into Aries at the beginning. Yeah, it just came out of Pisces. At this point, this is in May, mind you. The 24th or 25th of May, something like that. Maybe the
It's always
26th.
confusing. It's confusing because the horizon starts on the left and then it goes clockwise, but then the planets are going counterclockwise. So I sometimes get confused
Right.
whether it's leading or it's at the tail end.
Right. But actually, the signs are factored in counterclockwise the direction the planets go. If you look closely.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I get confused.
Yeah. The only thing that is different is the north, are the nodes.
Hmm.
Those are the only difference. So yeah, very much in that 00 Aries, powerful springing forward of action. Somebody else notice anything?
So many other things in Aries. It's like too much Aries already.
I think we
Yeah.
need the Aries at this point.
There is some benefits, but some people can be a little bit concerned with Aries because they have a tendency to really represent their Mars ruler. How's that for a description? They show up in a very martial way at times, right?
That's their job.
Yes, it is.
By birth.
Yeah. But be careful if you disagree with the way they're executing those details. You might want to step out of the way.
Same
Have
with
you ever,
Leo.
you know what? I'm not your typical Leo.
Oh no,
Well,
definitely
Except
not.
for you, Rick.
My Leo is kind of quieted by being in the 12th house.
Rick
I
is
go
as
behind the scenes.
Rick is as much a Leo as I'm a Taurus. Erica, you're probably more of a Taurus than I am. You might be
Well,
more of a Leo than Rick is.
I don't know. I've got 3 planets in Aries and 3 in Leo.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot of
I like to cook and I like to garden and I love animals and fuzzy things.
those are all very Tarian thoughts, for sure. So things that I happen to notice here.
You know what?
It- Sure, go ahead.
If you actually, for my benefit, and maybe others don't need it, but it'd be easier for me to see the chart while you're talking about it and maybe drawing connections to it if you feel.
Oh, I can go ahead and use the cursor.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I would feel better about that if everybody would like to go ahead and unmute, because that way I know that I can just expect that you're gonna
Weigh in.
talk it. Yeah, that's what my thought is. I want to make sure everybody's feeling welcome to weigh in. Okay. So does that give you better access to see the
Yep.
whole chart? Okay.
Yep.
So I find this really interesting because number one, this psychic mini trine is or mini grand trine as they sometimes call it. Some call it a mini psychic trine, is predominantly between Pluto, the Uranus Mercury conjunction. Hello, that's powerful. All having this culmination with the Saturn Neptune area of a conjunction. I think that's going to end up being important.
Saturn North Node.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. April 20th or 21st, I think it's happening.
This particular chart is from the
May the
25th of
25th.
May.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be about a month out from that transit. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big karma point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having that proximity to the North Node, certainly. I did include, what was that? Um, I thought I heard somebody trying to share something, but speak up if you are. It's interesting that the last lunar eclipse happens to be coinciding with the current path of the South Node. So I would expect that there was a lot of unconscious stuff that was triggered globally for people, that this Saturn transit through Aries, as they are as everyone tries to develop their identity and do them, do you, that is going to really bring forward some precise ideas of how they think things should be with that Virgo lunar eclipse, where they're trying to exercise discernment and understanding, which is fine. It would be nice that they're not trying to be critical, the way some of the Virgo energies can jump in there,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rick, what do you make, what is your perspective on the moon right above the ascendant at this point in time in this chart in terms of its significance?
Well, it's more there because it is squished over there
Mm-hmm.
with all the stuff in the chart. If you follow the little blue line here, it shows that the moon is actually up about here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, because if you're using the asteroids, it's always best to use the adjusted planetary positions. That way they can get you directed in case there's a congested area.
Yeah, that's a problem with having so many objects in points in the
Right.
chart. It's
And it can happen even if it's just planets, though.
yeah.
But I would definitely say that 12th house moon, that is some fertile dreaming.
Yeah, fertile dreaming, subconscious emotions.
Not very accessible, I would say. And this is in the sign of Taurus. Everything else here is in Aries, and then you have that Piscean North Node.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is Aries. The moon is the only one in Taurus.
That shows up often as embodied intuition,
Yes,
subconscious signs, things that you feel in your body that like
that's
something's
right.
going on for better or for worse, right? You just have an intuition, you feel it. It's not necessarily here, but it's in here.
Right, right. It is a clairsentience where you clearly sense it.
Wow.
Not even a claircognizance,
Yeah.
but I don't want to get people confused by too many terms. Here, this is interesting. First house, Uranus and Mercury conjoined in Taurus also. And, Taurus's connection to the earth is very practical. I think we're going to need these energies to go ahead and make some better financial decisions across the globe, and also some ideas that might make a difference for peace. I see here that lunar eclipse is in conjunct Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom and peace, or as I would like to sometimes say, wisdom and war, because it really does
Yeah.
frequently go that direction.
Rick,
Yes.
I had I think I saw something early this morning that made me think, and I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, but I think it was called the pink moon in terms of where it was located. Is that relevant to, how is that relevant to any of what we're talking about right now?
Pink moon, as I recall, may have some connections to the I think I've seen some things about it being connected to rebirth and regeneration, and it would definitely be, I would suspect it's referencing a full moon. I don't know.
It's a type of full moon, yeah, for sure. That's what
Mhm.
it referred to. Yep.
Yeah, I don't recall which one. Usually, I mean, you talk wolf moon, I'm remembering that's January. I've remembered every step of the way.
I think
Yeah.
it's coming up in a few days.
Mhm.
Okay, so
The
that would be
pink
the next
moon.
lunation.
Yeah.
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 So anybody who wants to go ahead and do some pensive work with meditation and tapping into old unconscious dramas that tend to creep up and try to understand them, that might be a good time to do that, because old patterns can be rewritten. We don't have to follow the same way we've always done things. I see that Eris is at 25 degrees 27 minutes with Chiron at 25 degrees 22 minutes.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Right?
Sun and Eris
Uh-huh.
Chiron conjunction. Nobody's talking
In
about that right
Aries.
now. I haven't seen a single astrologer mention it. Like, I'm sure somebody is, but wow,
Right.
that's
They would
Oh, we
probably be
heard her.
focused on Chiron.
Rick is, so yeah, there you go.
Oh, sure he
Well,
is. Yeah.
and Rick Clementi would not forgive me for not bringing this one forward.
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, Rick D sure would be. And
he
Rick
would
C is
see it
now.
glaring, and I certainly don't miss it.
Yeah.
That connection is clear. It's in Aries, so it's also trying the galactic center.
Oh, yeah. 26 Sag. That's
So
some
with that,
downloads happening there.
uh-huh,
Big ones.
and that to me, something's going on under the surface, because this is an unconscious house. It is a house that's difficult to voice things. It's frequently referred to as a house of loss. It is the place that we lose things from this space. When it comes to identity and Eris and her warlike experience and etymology of the name being so much like Aries, it does not get lost on me that it was discovered while in Aries.
Yeah.
I think that is important to recognize.
Yeah.
So Rick, on a sort of a personal level,
Yeah.
with what you're just talking about, when you talk about something that's lost or whatever, there's and also things that are happening under the surface. So there's a couple of things. For me, I feel like I'm in personally in a period where I feel lost, as in I feel like I was on a not necessarily a clear path, but just I feel like I've had too much information. Now I'm in overwhelm. But putting that aside, when you said that about stuff underneath, my sense at the moment here in Australia, looking at what's happening over there, is that there is so much happening that we don't know about, that
Right.
it feels awful because where it's this awful sense of being manipulated, the whole world,
Right.
but it's sort of all hidden. What's really going on? Does that sound sort of like what you're talking about?
It is coincidentally very understandable for right now, because even though this is going to be taking place in May at the end of after the third week, we can also recognize that the entire planet has dealt with all of these major planets coming through Pisces just a couple, like 4 to 8 weeks ago. The fast moving ones were still there. It was the parade of planets. So it was churning up all of this subconscious Piscean stuff that we don't speak to the light of day very universally. Everybody, how many people can say somebody, if it wasn't you that had a dream, you probably heard about somebody else having a crazy dream. It was a big topic of conversation. And the nature of the dreams were just next level. The clarity was bigger for those who were open to experience it. So now you come out of all that stirring as though you were having brain surgery and the surgeon hit your brain cells with an electric probe, right? Well, now
Yeah.
you're just lit up. And your first thought is, well, what does my identity make of all this stuff? But, as it's nice that we have Pisces on the cusp, but Aries is still buried in here with a lot of stuff making it all about me.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what I said back in 23, as we looked at Pluto entering into Aquarius, Rick and I saw all the stuff in Aries and Taurus, and we were very clear. It looks like there's going to be a lot of me, a lot of people working on their identity, finding their voice. And since that time in 23, I've really come to see it definitely all depends on how you process and face your stuff. Everybody that faces it responsibly, we'd like to say as an adult, but there's a lot of adults that prove that that is not a universal term. I'm sorry to say. So facing it directly. For those of us who can face it directly and we deal with our stuff, that's going to allow us to have a more smooth navigation through strange waters. They don't need to be troubled waters. They can just be strange.
They're very strange.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think it is beautiful that while Uranus and Mercury are bringing some real beautiful genius together, Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury, and that's really helping us think practically. I like the idea that the sun is in Gemini at this time, because that tells me that our souls are going to try to find the words. We're actually going to use our minds to make sense of the whole conundrum and what comes before us. But I think that our financial and political global issues may be able to take a pause from the high energy and stabilize a little bit, as long as the wounded people step out of the way. For as much as we can get people who are willing to be responsive to peace, I think it could happen. Now, this is the highest point in the zodiac. This is high noon. Pluto is in this chart the highest planet. Even if you were to look at simply the classical planets, then it's Saturn. But this is suggesting there's transformation afoot and available. transformation towards an Aquarian perspective. Ooh, if we want to go ahead and throw something on a wish list, how about focusing on that, right? Transform towards humanitarianism. That sounds lovely. I like that idea. And it is in a beautiful trine with the sun. Pluto trine the sun. That is a collaboration of sound thinking in air signs. To have the nuts and bolts regular communication of the Gemini with the motivation of the Aquarian to really tackle how shall we talk to one another.
Mhm.
I love that. I think it could make a difference and an impact. I think, too, if we are going to expect the exactitude of the Saturn Neptune is going to bring something together to coalesce for us, we can certainly suspect it is going to directly give us the opportunity to bring form to our spirituality. So we might want to do some work before we get to that conjunction. I think both having the message of Neptune in Aries and then the message of Saturn in Aries is probably a good thing to start to understand separately so we can then begin to fuse them. Now, I've erected this chart specifically for Greenwich because of that being recognized as the center of our timelines. That's why I do all of my ingresses for Greenwich. It is a universal and global energy. If you were to go ahead and do it for your local time, like here, we could have a lot of people enjoying a chart based in Pittsburgh. When does it hit Pittsburgh, you know? Some people that have a national concern might go ahead and want to see what does it deal with for putting it at Washington, D.C. People who are curious about global economics might consider using New York City for the stock exchange just to see how the economy is going to go.
Mhm.
That would be an interesting thought. You could play around with that if you're interested. Pull the data off here. You will see a little deviation in time because you're going to adjust for time. You want to get your Saturn as close to 0, 0, 0s. And when I was adjusting it, I was going down to the little chart to see what are the seconds because I wanted 0 seconds.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that took a little bit of doing. All right, I'm going to
Especially
go
if
ahead.
you have to do it on astro.com.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was having issues doing it even on Solar Fire.
Do you want the
Oh,
exact
wow.
time, Rick? I can get you the exact time for the ingress. If that's
Well, this one at Greenwich, I ran it through 2 filters because this is the same chart on astro.com as I got on AstroSeek.
okay.
I found 2 different calculating websites put it to this.
I
But
I have
honestly, I'm not seeing Solar Fire get it to the same place.
yeah, it's a little bit off. I use iFirmus sometimes though, and it's got for Greenwich it's 3:37 a.m. in the morning. For Eastern time in Pittsburgh or Columbus, it's
Mm-hmm.
12:37 or 11:37.
Yeah, and I don't understand how it's not actually
Yeah.
sticking to a 1 hour time zone, except you're dealing with local times.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're not letting us know that they're dealing with local time
Probably not.
because we had well, I don't know if you do remember the old days where we had to calculate by hand. You would deal with the local mean time, and I think that's what we're seeing. It's not just on time zones.
Yeah.
So there may be some great astrologers that put Solar Fire together that weren't that good at programming. That's probably what happened. That's
Makes
where
sense.
you have to have the humility to get people who are strong in the discipline you're not familiar with. So AI is not going to take over the world
No,
because you have to have brilliant people who know what they're asking questions about to get
Yeah.
the information.
I don't think we're gonna eliminate. I don't think AI is gonna take the place of the human component
No,
of things. Not yet.
no,
It's still a while down the road.
yeah. So I'm going to throw the asteroids in here now that we've seen this part.
Yeah.
That'll be an interesting little step as well.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a little smaller box this time.
Oh my. All those too.
Yeah, it will show us some other things. All right. So now we
Wow.
see the Akashic records. The way things are supposed to unfold is exactly what Pluto is trying to bring us forward to.
Oh,
That I found to be fascinating. That's at 337 with Pluto at 343. That's a tight conjunction.
oh wow.
Yeah. And that happens to be in aspect to the sun that is strong enough you even have a wider orb. So that conjunction between the sun and Sedna, I think
Oh,
that ends up, which brings up a lot of female rights.
Mm.
Okay. This is where I think it would be a good time to talk about Juno. Do you know who that is?
cute.
That is Hera, the wife of Zeus, as far as the Greek names. And Juno is the Roman counterpart and spouse of Jupiter.
Hmm.
Make no mistake, as much as it appears to be male dominated, in the representation being so limited in the feminine, Hera was not always married to him. Juno was not always his wife. He had to woo her, and she did not take to him quickly. She maintained and held her political power, as the myths contend. And because that was the case, there was serious issues of her making a choice to go ahead and hold her own with him. I feel that has to do with the primacy of recognizing the power of the anima and the animus in the human being. There is this sovereign part of ourselves that is our unconscious understanding of these drives. And although Juno is representative of marriage and childbirth, I cannot help but feel that in the recent past, where we have, has anyone ever heard of somebody, quote unquote, marrying themselves? They're
No,
celebrating their individuality.
really?
The gals are even getting white dresses and walking down an aisle
Wow.
to proclaim their sovereignty over their own identity. And I
Wow.
think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, so it is, I think it should be considered that it's a possibility we may be looking at a good representation of some feminist values in Juno. Well, over
Mm.
here in Pisces, Nessus, the abuser,
Mm.
is in trine.
Oh.
Does that maybe suggest that there's going to be some healing as we come to walk around our abusers with a better understanding of who they are, as opposed to feeling victimized by them? Maybe.
That sounds very Saturn in Aries too.
That's why I'm thinking these kind of things make a lot of sense. Over here at the 2-degree part of Aries, while Neptune is at 1 and Saturn's at 0, is Ceres, the very first asteroid found, the Earth Mother. Back in the 70s, when we were hearing commercials about the margarine that was so tasty, and she would get all upset and the lightning would strike, the rains would fly, and it was not nice to fool Mother Nature. Yeah, that's why Ceres is spelled with a C. It deals with cereal, the grain, and it's a sickle that you would harvest the grain.
Really, really good point, Rick. I don't think most people even think about that. Cereal.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about it last week. It's like, is that where we get cereal from? Like, I know it is actually, but
yeah, but it is interesting to look at those, and it, and Ceres does deal with elements of nourishment as well as nurturing, feeding the body, feeding the life, feeding the soul.
I've got a question for you,
Sure.
maybe for everybody. What is, I mean, I know we're kind of moving away from planetary associations, or sign associations, but what sign would you associate Ceres with? Because I know
I'm
some people will
trying
say
to
Virgo,
remember.
and I feel at one point Rick D talked about this though, and I can't remember if he settled on Virgo or Cancer. I think maybe it's a little bit of both.
Mm.
I could see putting it more towards Cancer
Yeah.
because
May-
it is more, Juno's more about women in childbirth, not the fact that they're mothers. Aries is more the mother.
Yeah.
So I could see that
I,
representation.
I wonder if Ceres replaces the moon in a Martian chart whenever we go to Mars. And we
Well, I
cast the
will
first
say
chart from
this.
Mars, you know.
Ah.
I absolutely will elevate Aries as being a second representation of motherhood in somebody's chart. It's that powerful of a mother connection. So to connect it with the 4th house or Cancer makes a lot of sense.
I feel that way too. I really do.
Hmm.
Something to pay attention to.
Oh yeah. Um, so there's Ceres. There's also Heracles in the Greek, which is Hercules in the Roman. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but 10 based counting is very modern and Western. It is not the only system of counting there's ever been. At one time, they had 12 a 12 base counting system, and it made it easy to go to 12 because out of 4 fingers, we had 3 phalanges on each hand that we could count to 12 on one hand, another 12 on the other. You could get to 24. You didn't have to whip your sandals off and look at your toes. Thank you, Erica. Dad jokes, right? So it is,
I can just picture people counting that way.
right?
It's a funny picture.
Yeah. Heracles having that 12 count of labors, I feel that it is a literary tool in the mythos, the same way the Bible uses the frame 1,000, saying things like a day is as 1,000 years in the Lord. Well, 12 labors of Hercules is like, I'm doing all the work for this person to accept me, because it was all about getting his stepmother's approval. Are you familiar with the Greek myth for the origin of the Milky Way galaxy?
Nope.
Hercules, in his infancy, was alienated by his mother's husband. So Zeus takes him to Olympus, and while Hera, his wife, is sleeping, he puts baby Hercules on her breast to suckle. And she wakes up and is furious that she has been feeding this child that is the product of his tryst. And she separates and breaks the connection, and thus spurts all the Milky Way to the galaxy. That's how they come up with that.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Apparently she had a powerful capacity to feed and give milk. And there was this approval because she didn't want him to complete those 12 tasks. But it is essentially, because it is this ultimate number, it is the story of completion in an old cultural sense. And you gain, upon completion, a feeling of acceptance. So it is considered to represent striving in the human experience. I can see a lot of striving going on that would be blessed and benefited by this Aries strength of having Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries. Chuck, did you have a thought you wanted to share?
I have a question more than anything.
Yes.
Because I have a limited amount of, I only have a few minutes yet that I could stay with you all. What I'm curious about, Rick, is all that activity going on in the 12th house between the signs and the planets. What is the significance of that combined with the first house, combined with the third house and the fourth? Because it seems like there's a connection there as I look at it, and I'm just curious as to what you see.
Well, I have all my life looked at past life and evolutionary motivations to understand astrology. And maybe it was last year. It had to be last year, because Rick was still actively bringing people's charts up, and he brought Renate's chart up, and it gave me a huge illuminating idea. Did you realize that in addition to having a Uranus return at 84, she also had a Pluto opposition? And that means in the time it takes the planet 247, give or take a few months, years to get around the whole zodiac, her Pluto has made it halfway already. That's like sprinting, really rolling hard to make it halfway around. So I realized we have had, for the last 84 years, for all of her life, large concentrations of time where Pluto was going through signs of short ascension and different types of experiences. As a trauma planet, it has been triggering and making many things happen. I think that's why we feel like we've had so much history go on and change in the past year. I think it's really true. And I think it's going to get even more crazy. If you look in 10, 20-year cycles, the amount of change seems to be growing exponentially every decade. So I think the connection that you're seeing is this is all in preparation to go ahead and get somewhere. It is to bring the whole planet to grow up. So you look at the different pieces, it looks like we're supposed to be having a healthy sense of self-worth. If we're going to go ahead and save the planet's financial situation, Taurus will tell us you got to go ahead and do some sensible thinking.
What would be I mean, do you see any particular like timing aspects or cycles tied into this, Rick? I keep wanting to call you Claudia because I see Claudia's name on
I
the
hear
screen,
you.
but not know you're Rick.
Because
Is it just me?
You want to call me Claude for tonight?
Claude, okay. Claudia has become Claude.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Um,
that's a pretty easy thing to
but-
change on your screen, Claudia.
Yeah.
Well, it's not my screen, and I don't want to mess it up in case I
Yeah.
have a problem
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
But I say that because I know Pluto it's actually, it was accelerating through Scorpio in the 80s,
Yes,
90s, and now we're going into longer cycles where it spent like what 16 years in Capricorn,
exactly.
it's 20 in Aquarius, it'll be like 23 or something like that in Pisces, so it's lengthening, but it still feels like there's this rapid kind of cycle of energy, and my
Well,
theory
we
is,
haven't dealt with it. We haven't processed it.
yeah, well,
We
yeah,
need to slow down so that we can catch our breath. This
yeah.
is like somebody who has had like 15, 20 years of life trauma, and we just have to get off that train.
There's no slowing down in the transits, though. I mean, and I don't know how much we've talked about this. I know Rick D always liked when I come on and talk about the cycles and all, but like, I was thinking, I'll share, I was thinking that the 2020s, oh, this is going to smooth out because we've got this grand trine, trine and sextile with Neptune to Uranus and Gemini to Pluto and Aquarius and all, though. And it's just like these are favorable, nice aspects. This isn't a square. This isn't an opposition. We've got that coming up in the 2040s.
Well,
That's
I was
gonna be,
born in 65.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah,
I saw
2040s.
I saw different things throughout society, but as I look back astrologically, when we hit pandemic, and I'm thinking, see, my grandmother was born in 1918. So I had an automatic marker in my head. That was the flu epidemic globally. That's 120 years.
Hmm.
No, 102 years, excuse
Yeah.
me. It's
Roughly.
102 years. What is 102 divided by 2?
It's a Chiron return, second Chiron return of the.
Yes.
I
And
didn't think about
it
that.
it was planetary. And what did Chiron train people to do? Train them to be focused and aware of health, healing. We had pandemics. And we had one that kind of gets washed under the rug in the late 60s at that Chiron return in the middle. And
Yeah.
we certainly remember the social unrest of the 60s.
Yeah, that
It
got
wasn't a
overshadowed.
world war,
Yeah.
but it was a social unrest that it was challenging ideas all over the place.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I caught that, I thought, I think the same way that the one in the 60s
Thank
was
you for being here,
quiet.
Charles. Good to
Yes,
see
it was wonderful seeing you, Chuck. Take care.
It was good to see you
Great
too.
to see
Thank
you.
you.
Take
I
care.
know.
I really do believe there's a different expression that it's making at these different uh, returns from 1918, the middle of the end of the 60s, and then 2020. And back in 2020, I was predicting, I think just like we had the roaring 20s, we had this willingness to believe whatever Nixon was saying until he got out. We bought those tales, you know, and Johnson, a lot of believing hard that Johnson was just being a good guy. And there are quite a few people who will take up the banner that he was the one who orchestrated JFK's assassination. It's still being told, true or not, it is what people are feeling. That we have to recognize. I think there is going to be financial devastation, and seeing the tariff situation, I would not be surprised if the economists really make a push to get some sense into the White House administration.
Yeah.
Because the planet is depending on people that really know how to do math at math. This is not computer science that Elon understands.
I don't think
This
he
is
does,
economic
actually.
science that these businessmen don't, they are supposed to hire economists to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
They are, businessmen are not equipped, and they don't have the humility to get the experts to go ahead and get all the information to make decisions like a better politician would.
Yeah, you need the bankers, the finance people, like what's his name, Powell at the Fed.
Mm-hmm.
He knows his numbers up and down, left and right and sideways. You
Right.
can't tell me that Trump knows that better than he does, but Trump wants them out. Okay. Yeah, how's that gonna work out?
Well,
It does feel like there's just no, I'm going to use the word adult in
at the
leadership.
helm.
Well, it's that sense. I was thinking about it the other day where I think of Trump as like an 8-year-old, and he stayed there. And that because he's never been made accountable for anything in his life. I mean, to be able to get away with all those bankruptcies, to get away with what he's doing now, to sort of have a criminal record and
He's
still
a convicted felon.
Exactly. And I'm the president. And it's like, this is, anyway, you know what it is, but it just feels so loopy, so loopy.
Yeah.
And it's great to see some people are really, standing up and saying, no, 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 no. I don't know if they'll be able to do anything, but anyway, that's just my
I've
take
got
on it.
a question. I feel like this is probably like a Rick D question. What represents Trump in the situation? Like, as we look at the astrology, what, like, where is Trump? Like, is it a particular planet? Is it an aspect? Like,
Um,
what is he the embodiment of in this scene?
well, authority figures, kings and rulers, would normally have been something around Saturn, but that's such a disciplined experience.
Yeah,
I don't see him embodying that.
he's not Saturn. And I know
He's not embodying it.
some people have said Uranus, which, I don't know if he's Uranus in Taurus, though. But
Uranus, though, is such a maligned malefic. He does not deserve it.
yeah.
We can look into deeper things, but I do believe Uranus is more. He gets a bad rap undeservedly.
I agree, Rick. Yeah.
Did Rick D, sorry, John, did
No,
Rick
go for it.
D mention Eris as Trump? Like I'm sure he said something about the light and shadow of Eris. Trump is like the shadow. Does that make sense to you? Because I'm not quite sure. I just remember he's
Yeah,
mentioned
Well,
it.
I'm not
it,
sure if he
it
did. Go for
it's
it.
a possibility. I don't recall that being said, but we have a whole body of his words on the channel. We certainly can see, especially over the course of the years, what has been shared by him in that regard. It might be interesting to note. I will also say, with a few interesting highlights here, the asteroid Child is connected to the prenatal solar eclipse.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So it is further showing the need and the capacity to recognize that all these things out of the unconscious are trying to work their way out to deal with our inner child work.
I recall Rick saying that in the way that Trump was represented by Aries was that Aries represented the angry people that voted for him, that felt like they were left out, and that was like the negative side of Aries. And then
that
the
makes
progressive
sense.
people
Yeah.
by Aries also, but positive sense. So it was like the two different sides of Eris that had been set free.
Right. That's an interesting concept. I'm noticing here that while you have prenatal solar eclipse, the thing you came to teach, the thing this Saturn is trying to teach us is about doing our inner child work. It is in trine down here to shadow, karma, and Mars that actually would trine this point here that is the great attractor. So while you have the galactic center, here you have the great attractor.
Is that where the rising sign of the United States is? It's right about there?
Yeah, it's 12 degrees of Sag, I think.
Right, which interestingly enough, with galactic astrology, that puts the galactic attractor on the US ascendant.
Yeah, powerful point.
Yeah, I'm sure that has a lot to do with what has drawn prosperity to us. I did think about, if I had more time, but that I would put a whole bunch of financial asteroids in here and see what this is going to do to us financially on a global level. That would
Yeah.
certainly be interesting.
I have a question about Jupiter.
Yes.
I've been hearing from a Vedic astrologer that Jupiter is going to start moving very, very quickly over the next couple of years, more quickly than normal, and how that is going to affect things and make them grow and bring, positive, expansive energy. I mean, I know
That
that
would
the
be in
Vedics,
keeping with what was being said about the shift in time and how fast Pluto is going to be traveling. So if
Yeah.
you can see that in Jupiter, it's not shocking because it's starting to get into different signs that it'll move through quicker. That's easy to
he said
suspect.
something about it doesn't happen that often, but it's a very major point of
Mm-hmm.
the coming times. So that's good because it'll move us through things quickly, through change quickly.
Well,
Here's
honestly, that's only good for the people that have support. Some people that don't feel supported, I can't get into that next idea that soon, you know?
Well, they have to speak up with that Saturn and Aries. It's like, hey, I need support.
Yeah. I also see Cerberus and Venus together, 18 and 19 degrees. There is an unconscious draw in Venus to try to understand the pain of our secret hell, our most hellish secrets. So that looks to me like there is a push in the unconscious desire of everybody to try and say, what is going on? Not in an exasperated way, but in a committed way that I'm going to have a cup of coffee and sit with this. I got to figure this out. I'm going to go sit on the back porch with a glass of tea and sit in the rocking chair and figure this out. I may take a walk in the woods and figure this out. Whatever it takes, I'm going to figure this out. Psyche is at 7 degrees 20 minutes of Taurus. The moon is at 6 degrees 13 minutes. Well, the moon is the repository of all our memories. Psyche is that part of our soul that is working things through our mind, that is trying to put pieces of the puzzle together. We have another thing that is trying to find comfort. Taurus always wants to be comfortable. Taurus is going to do what it can to get comfortable. Taurus might sound uncomfortable because he's going to yell at everybody that's making him uncomfortable to push them away. You know, the shamanic reason that a skunk passes your path is because in your life, you need people to scatter and run. That's why you're bringing skunk energy in.
Huh.
So maybe we're going to go ahead and protect our peace the way a Taurus would. Cut people out if you need to, you know?
Shadow of Scorpio.
Right. Absolutely.
Scorpio is very good at cutting people off when Scorpio has no use for them or when they feel they're a
Right.
threat. Taurus doesn't
Mhm.
get as much scrutiny for that, but Taurus is quite capable of cutting people and things out too.
Right.
Just don't make so much of a big deal out of it.
Here having that 18 and 19 degree Venus and Cerberus in Aries. There's nothing over here. However, it is in conjunct Narcissus.
Huh.
There is this imbalance in the energies in an in conjunction. So maybe, as difficult as it is for understanding things that happened when we were too young with inner child work, maybe we're trying to understand trauma that happened from people we trusted. And that's why it's tricky. And that would make sense because Narcissus in Scorpio, that to me would be very veiled, very secretive, very cagey. I'm not saying that Scorpios are narcissists. I'm saying that's how Scorpio would color the energy of Narcissus.
Is Narcissus the one that looked into the pond and fell in love with himself or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
While Echo was falling in love with him.
Did he fall in and drown or what happened?
I think he stayed there so long he took root on the watery banks, and that's how we get the flower of the narcissus that grows in those marshy areas.
Oh, cool.
You know, they do blend those parts of the story. And it's not good in a comparative chart system of two different people if the narcissist in one is connecting with the echo in the other.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Definitely.
Because that means that the echo person is not heard, and their voice will just continue to dissipate in importance to the partner. It's not a good space.
Like a one-sided relationship. They're in love with them, but the other person is in love with themselves.
Right. And essentially, as Narcissus was more fascinated by his own image as it is reflected, the only thing he was able to show people was just a surface image. So people who fall in love with a narcissist are not really in love with a narcissist. They're in love with the image the con artist created, what the charmer deceived someone to believe. That is a hard, bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, you fell in love with a shadow.
An image that was totally false.
And that is exactly opposite Serby, you said?
Cerberus, and it's in
Cerberus?
conjunct.
Oh, in conjunction.
Because it's in Aries,
Oh,
and Narcissus is in Scorpio.
oh, I thought I saw something in Taurus there that looked like it was
That's because of
opposite.
how busy Aries is.
Oh, okay.
That's why I brought attention to all the blue adjustment marks.
Is it opposed to Venus then?
Nope,
Is
because
Venus in Taurus? No.
Venus and Cerberus are both in Aries,
Oh, okay.
in conjunct Narcissus together. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too, because Venus has responded to the charms of the narcissist. But I think having it in Aries gives it enough of that Martian energy for people to shake off the baggage of their previously bad relationships with narcissists. I think this will trigger a lot of healing for people.
I'll take it.
Right?
I think we're ready for that.
Yeah.
It's worth sharing with a few people.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I think we're definitely ready for that, Rick.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a very good indicator, John, that it is a plan that we all transform.
Oh, Akashic Records. Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Bringing to light that we all have the power to transform when we see the real truth.
I think we're starting to see a little bit of it now. I think there is an awakening that's happening.
And we don't have to concern ourselves with global truth and reality.
Yeah.
Just look at your own situation and figure out what made us get tied into the people that we were personally connected to. Just do our own work. Don't worry about global things when it comes to trauma. Just take care of
I
your
have
own.
to excuse myself. I'm getting a
It was lovely
call from a friend in London who just lost her mom. She's been trying to get in touch with me for the last 2-3 weeks.
Well, bless you in the grace you're about to share.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
good
This
week,
was
Erica.
wonderful,
Sure.
good
It's so good to
news
see
of
you.
what's coming up. And to you also, see you all in 2 weeks.
The
See you
Erica.
too.
Okay.
Much love.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Because, we cannot do something about global events. We can only control our own healing.
Absolutely.
If there is anything else that we can do, I would say we can support those who are trying to consciously recover something and shift gears.
Yeah.
If they wish to talk, if they have a question. But you cannot heal someone else.
That's true.
It's a collaborative.
Their own, they have to do the work themselves.
Mm-hmm. And there's Chiron. in the midst with Aries. He is the doctor on the war field, a battlefield of war,
Yeah.
and this battlefield is the individual minds of souls when you're going through Aries.
It's going to be moving into Taurus soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what that ingress will be for Saturn.
Yeah, I think Chiron and Saturn meet up at some point too.
Oh, it'll certainly happen
Yeah.
because
Like soon.
Saturn is closer into towards the sun than Chiron is.
Yeah.
Chiron spends a little too much time at a distance. Linda, do you happen to have any interesting stories of what's going on with young college minds in regard to their ideas of identity and finding their voice in their writing, in their English? Anything that would be intriguing?
Not really. I'm in the dog days of the semester, so it's big struggle right now. The biggest concern right now we have is their flirtation with chatbots. And
Oh, okay.
I had a class that I don't know, maybe a third. I think it's what, 20, 21, 22 people in there, probably 7 or 8 of them turned in their midterm exam having had it written by a machine.
Yeah.
And and so we've had to have a lot of discussions about not giving away your identity. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
You're a person. I keep saying to them, you're a person,
Right.
a machine. And, and some of it is just that they're sort of alienated from intellectual activity. That's sort of a post-COVID thing. I mean, I think
Right.
students are always like that to some degree, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
have you know, you don't always have good writers, but I usually used to have a lot of kids who were interested in things, and this cohort is not all that interested in anything.
So we do have an asteroid that helps you out with AI and
What's that?
understanding.
Which one's that?
Remember Space Odyssey?
A long time ago.
That was
Hal.
2001. Hal.
Literally
Wow.
asteroid
Oh my
2001.
goodness.
There is an asteroid named Hal.
Of
Its
course.
number
Right
is
here.
9,000.
Oh, geez. Of course.
And I heard someone. A lot of astrologers listen to people's conversations and pays attention to listen to them very intently. I think that's one of the things that make us such fantastic listeners, because we're trying to hear the themes of stories in their words, so we can see what planet is really prominent in you right now. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was listening to someone concerned about AI, and I thought, oh, I got to see what Hal was doing in his chart. And there's Hal. And so while the prenatal solar eclipse is at 9 degrees 00 minutes, Hal is at 10:12 and child is at 10:41.
Oh my goodness.
So apparently there is stuff that they are unconsciously wrestling with.
Well, that would be good. One of the things that I'm finding is that I just give them a lot of, I didn't fail them, or there was no penalty for this.
Sure.
I did the guilt thing. And I mean, I just said, you're better than this. And,
Right.
you have to wrestle with ideas because, we do
And
not.
that's what Hercules would do.
Yeah, right. You have to wrestle with this. You have to work on it. You have to have your own thoughts because you don't want to give yourself away to machines. And there's lots of people. There's ways of using AI, very creatively and interestingly. It's wonderful for research because,
Sure.
you can map out a research field on like Research Rabbit. There's a lot of good things that you can do, but this kind of notion, I mean, and the thing is, here's the thing. It's
Yeah.
not any different than when kids used to use those.
Calculators and math.
Well, and for English, it was like the Spark Notes and stuff and the Cliff Notes.
Oh, right, right.
Instead of reading something, they do the Cliff Notes, or they'd look it up on Wikipedia. So it's just an never-ending thing with young people that they think there's a shortcut to thought, and unfortunately, there is not. And
I have a thought to share that is an antidote to that.
oh, good.
So I love good conversation. What I love more than anything in a good conversation is people that will join in the game of thinking deeply. And if these kids really want to advance their grasp of any concept, if they would just get together and talk about the subjects, wrestle with them as though they're supposed to go ahead and go back in history and fix it, what would be the, sort of take a philosophical time journey the way Carmen Sandiego would take them on journeys around the world, and let them value their friendships,
Well,
find the genius in one another, and allow that genius to make them find an original thought that is all their own, that they never would have had they not gone through the dialectic.
Well, see, the thing, this is essentially what I wanted, was my plan yesterday. I divided kids into small groups, and we're talking about expertise, which was interesting when you were talking about
Beautiful.
experts, and that's the sort of the theme of the course. And we have right now, we've read like 8 or 9 different things, and they all sort of take a different angle on it. And now I'm
Sure.
saying to them, okay, now you've read all this stuff, but what are the ideas that emerge for you?
Right.
What are the, so I put them in groups and I said, find quotations from these passages and then see if you can pull out the ideas. And there was 20 minutes of silence. They won't even talk to one another. They won't even talk to one another. The only class I have that I don't have to beat to talk to each other is my Zoom class. And my Zoom class, they talk all the time. We're all on screen together. They all turn the cameras on. They're excellent. And I think they're a little older than the freshmen. So, it's just,
Well, and it is a different model of information exchange to go from high school to college.
well, and these kids were sort of middle schoolish during COVID, and they're, um, it's just the thing about teaching freshmen. It's always like this. It's not always the same problem, but
But it comes from the same place.
yeah, there's always a problem. And
They must feel unsafe, do you think, Linda? Do they feel unsafe somehow that they can't?
I
Like
think
on
that,
Zoom, maybe they feel safer. And I mean, I know you said they're older on Zoom, but
well,
I don't know.
I think
I don't know.
some of that. I also think that the Zoom class is easier because a lot of it revolves around film, and when they can use more than one sense, they're almost always better. And I can ask a question about a film that we've seen, and then I'll say, how do you respond to that? And then they're more able to do that versus when I'm asking them to look at something that's in words and printed. It's, but I don't, I just observe it. I don't judge it pretty much. I get frustrated sometimes because I can't figure out what to do next to try to crack it open. Oh, Siri just said,
Siri's trying to help you.
shut up, Siri. You're crazy. She never
Yeah.
talks to me except when I don't want her to.
Is that funny?
So I don't know. I mean, I think these kids are I think they've been through a crap ton of trauma.
They have been, Linda. They
You
really
know, they were born right after 9/11, and so they lived through all the forever wars and the 2008 crash, the economic crash, and then the COVID thing, and now
Yeah.
the insanity
And
that
that came with a housing problem.
yeah. And their
So, yeah.
their parents lost jobs
And then
and
social
just
media
social
too.
media and their,
Phones,
you know,
ads,
so
technology in their face constantly.
and they're, you know, and I don't know where it would be maybe in this particular chart, but there's this the sense I have in terms of literacy, and I always try to think of things through literacy,
Yes.
is that the you know we had what I would call pre-Gutenberg.
Okay.
And then we had Gutenberg, and Gutenberg is, there's a book called, Joe Jarvis wrote a book called The Gutenberg Parentheses, that the age of print is over. So now we're having, metaphorically speaking, a new Gutenberg moment, and something new has been born, and that the kind of humans that were paper and pencil and pen and typewriting and print book humans are different from these new humans.
Oh, absolutely.
They're like
Fundamentally
they're
so.
like a new person. And
And
it's
if you were to go ahead and get them all in a room and have them one group on one side, one group on the other, they would certainly all 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Well,
We are all different when we break into those groups.
yeah.
I'm thinking, remember when, I mean, well before we had the internet, well before we even had TVs, like, I mean, when people could just write letters, like, I mean, there was something to putting the pen to the paper. Who was it? Is it Marcuse who the medium is a message? And just like
Marshall
how, like,
McLuhan, I
our,
think, wasn't
yeah,
that?
our communication
Uh,
affects our reality, how we communicate, how we view information, how we receive it. So we've gone from the society of, like, first like scribing, etching letters and pictures on rock to eventually paper and, the printing press and all. That's improved reading books. And then, as you spoken to so eloquently earlier, Rick, just, the rapid change, and like we've got this
Right.
technology just coming at us left and right, and we can't keep up with it. I mean, now we've got phones, and phones have all this information and data, and just
and the
completely different way
information
of processing and looking at it.
and the information and data, I mean, part of it is, and I think that we don't even really recognize this, the quality, I read this yesterday, that it used to be on the internet, you could find out interesting things. And
Oh yeah.
the top 15 or 20 internet searches would be rich and interesting. And now it's junk. And and you don't get people's thoughts anymore. You get information. And there's a big confusion between information and knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
These kids think information is knowledge. And
No, it's just data.
I said, no, and we've spent all semester trying to, not that I'm teaching that, but we're reading these things that should suggest this to them, and they can't grasp it. And it may be they're too young, and it may be that they don't have any knowledge themselves really yet. That's the other thing. When you're 18, what do
I
you know?
think that
Crap, you don't know nothing.
it would be interesting to find the bridge and the steps between data to knowledge to wisdom.
I mean, wisdom's so far away we can't even conceive of.
Right. But I mean, we usually think of it as experiential applied knowledge,
well,
the wisdom.
can we take this back to this chart here? I mean,
Yeah.
okay, because I have a question about this now. Now that we
Sure.
brought this up,
Yeah.
what does Rick D used
Communication, I'll tell you, you look, and ideas and thinking, intellect, third house, and
yeah.
it will be colored by different things. Remember, there is both
The third house is empty.
yeah, and the moon that rules it is in the 12th. So don't look for people to be grasping at their words immediately. They're going to come up with the words. That Uranus and Mercury conjunction is the one thing that is saving them, but it's going to be self-serving. It's not going to be intellectual so much, but they will do it to serve themselves.
Well, one of the things that I always think about teaching, it's a simple way of thinking about it, is that a lot of times in the 15 weeks I have, I don't feel like I get anywhere. But what you have, is that you're like a farmer. You've planted seeds.
Yeah.
There's
Oh
just
yeah.
seeds. There's just
I-
seeds. And then they come back, 10 years later and they tell you this course changed my life. And I'm thinking, what the hell? I had no idea.
Well, apparently they are engaging in a lot of receptive intellectual communication. They are receiving by hearing the same way babies do. Babies understand many more words, and so do dogs and cats. They have those little push buttons they can go ahead and tap on the ground. The animals, not the babies. And that comes before you experience expressive communication. You have to have understanding of a thought before you can put the blocks together to express a thought. That I had a poli-sci teacher who fostered in-class debate every class, bringing up the Democrats and the Republicans to understand the Constitution, the Communist Manifesto, other things, and communicate an informed set of needs and debate how they were going amongst each other and battle with him if they want to. And I was the strongest one there.
Oh.
And that would help the conversation. But it was an early class and there were times I didn't go. And by the time I missed my second class, he told me, when you're not here, it is not the same. These people just are too much holding back. They don't step up and they don't express and communicate. So if you have anybody who can go ahead and get out there and engage, let them know how valuable they are.
Oh, that's, they all know. I actually give them points.
Oh, good.
One of my rules is if you're carrying the class, you get more points. That's the end of that story,
Right.
If they catch me in a mistake, they get 5 points. If they,
So cool.
I'd be like, pay them. I like literally pay them because especially with these platforms, it's so easy to forget to change a date or to move something around. And, because a syllabus for me is a suggestion. I never stick to them very closely because
That professor of mine, he gave us a question at the end of the class, and we had to create an essay answer. So there was an essay every class, but it was all your own thinking. And it was just
beautiful.
I think you could find that would open people up. If you could go ahead and ask them a question, it would go ahead and go a long way to get them to express themselves. And it doesn't matter what they're saying. It matters that they're engaging.
Well, I don't disagree with you there, because engagement, curiosity,
Yes,
willingness to take a risk, all those things are, more important sometimes than the content that you're looking at.
that's right. And getting your feet wet makes you comfortable and you can do it more. I know somebody who has a training that they have accomplished the schooling to do an occupational therapy job, but they have not yet taken the test and passed, and they can go work as an OT therapist who is trained, but not yet certified. And they're concerned about getting that certification, but they can work up to 6 months. I said, you should go and get that job at the level you can get it at. And every 3 to 4 weeks, I didn't even let her think, just do it every month. I said 3 to 4 weeks because I know she's going to slack off. And every time you get a chance, you go take that test. You're going to get over your fear of test taking. You're going to have live opportunity to internalize the work that you're doing, that it cements your understanding of the body and the needs. You will actively be doing hands-on. It'll make a difference. If you get people engaged in what they have been taught to do and just get them to do, they won't feel like they need to get out of the doo-doo.
That was funny. You guys are crazy.
I have fun with words. This has been a lovely time. I am so looking forward to what we find next in some iteration.
absolutely.
And I think I'm going to talk to Claudia about the idea of maybe we can go in and see what episodes have been listed, and maybe we can even get episode numbers back on track, because that would be able to be figured out by date, which
Yeah.
came before what. I was just thinking about that. That would be a nice thing to do.
Well,
Yeah.
make it to 400. Rick really wanted to get to 400, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. So
So
we're going to have fun in the next couple of weeks, and we will continue to communicate through the Facebook group. It's great to see you guys everywhere, and love you all.
Thank you. Love you
I
guys.
am going to
All your hard
expand
work.
this
All right.
so I can stop the recording.
love you all, Jane, Linda, Anita.
Yeah.
Much
Thanks,
love to
Donovan.
you.
Thanks, Rick.